This might seem strange, but this is my fish-keeping happy place, an empty tank. At this stage in the process, not only is nothing going to go wrong, but you also have a multitude of directions to go. Research to do, stupid ideas to scrap, sensible ideas to yawn about, and inspiration to wait for. And sometimes that inspiration can take a while. A really long while. Oh, these guys look interesting.
Whoa. Tell the real story.
Okay, so actually this article annoyed me in that time-honoured way that a grumpy kid, i.e. me, hates getting told what to do. I'd already read about these fish in my awesome Dwarf Cichlid book and thought they sounded fascinating. In fact, they were literally on the cover of the book and I'd already been doing a lot of research about them. Now I had to decide if them suddenly being popular was going to change my plans.
Okay, I'll get awesome fish.
So why exactly are they awesome? Well, the Nanochromis Transvestis is a dwarf cichlid from the Lake Mai-Ndombe that lives in shadow branch covered areas of the lake in dark, tea-coloured, soft, acidic blackwaters. They are best known because of their unique reversed sexual dichromatism, in which, unlike most dwarf cichlids, the female has the more attractive coloration and conducts the elaborate courtship displays. They are also pretty difficult to breed in the regular neutral conditions of most aquariums, but if given the right environment, then successful breeding sounds really rewarding and interesting. So yeah, I really wanted a pair, and it also helped that months previously I'd seen an awesome piece of large bogwood with loads of natural caves which I just knew would work perfectly for a dwarf cichlid blackwater. So what sort of environment do Nanochromis Transvestis need? Well, like I said, they come from Lake Mai-Ndombe and thrive in low pH waters. The dark, tannin-infused waters which they enjoy in the wild are bordered by swamp forests, and so the edge of the lake consists of boggy, sandy sediment and large root structures which the fish can hide within. I decided that to minimise sand compaction I would build up a base structure with dark river rock which I knew would blend nicely with all the botanicals I planned to add later. This created a bit of height for the bogwood and means that it is also nice and sturdy should the fish begin to burrow into the sand to build new caves. That said, there are ample natural caves within the wood for them to enjoy anyway. The final addition to complete the hardscape section was the addition of little twigs and roots to develop the natural biotope effect I was going for. This gives a little bit of texture and a place for epiphyte plants to fit as if they have been swept into the roots by the current of the water. And so now it was time to get planting. I definitely let down any semblance of proper biotope here because, being the cheapskate that I am, my plants are mostly cuttings and removals from my other tanks. And so this African Dwarf Cichlid tank has a mixture of Southeast Asian cryptocorynes in it, I'm afraid. But fortunately, I also had an abundance of bulbitis cuttings, which claws back a little bit of legitimacy. And then I go and really ruin it, because when looking up carpeting plants that will thrive in sandy blackwaters, I discover Marsilea Hirsuta and decide it will definitely look awesome in this scape. So yeah, we have a mixture of Asian, African and Australian. At least they all start with A, I guess. As with most of my tanks, this aquarium will run with an air-driven sponge filter, and I've got my usual acrylic box glued into the corner behind the bogwood. To hide the filter even more, I decided to put some aqua soil beneath the filter and then nestle little bunches of Rotala and Kabomba into the filter box, which will eventually drape over the top of the bogwood and give a nice background effect. Again, these are Asian and South American, so we really aren't doing well with our biotype credentials, but it's definitely starting to look lovely regardless. The final flourish is to add some botanicals to finish the blackwater effect and blend the substrate textures together a little more cohesively. For this I used a mixture of alder cones, casuarina cones, spakali pods, walakai pods, almond leaves and coconut curls. Kinda sounds like a weird Whole Foods smoothie. Finally, it was time to add some water and get this tank cycled. At this stage, you'll also notice a couple of river rocks on the top. This was to ensure that the bogwood didn't float and ruin all my hard work, and I do eventually remove them. Although, for a while I liked the way it made the bogwood seem like it was growing out of a rock face, and I did consider leaving them. What do you think? Would you have kept them in place or not? So at this stage, I'd say I've definitely achieved my goal. A tea-coloured blackwater lake bank with plenty of natural hiding places and sandy, sedimentary substrate which will look even better once the carpet grows in and the botanicals break down. And so now, the waiting game begins. And it wasn't long before the tank was cycled and I could make my first purchase, some diver fish that would keep the Nanochromis feeling safe and secure in their new home. And so I decided to get a small group of Norman's lampi. And although not specific to Lake Mai-Ndombe, these guys are found throughout Central Africa, so I'm feeling pretty good about my tenuous biotope credentials once again. I think you'll agree they look pretty awesome, though these guys are not the easiest to get a close-up shot of. But even out of focus, their eyes look incredible. This is definitely an underrated fish. Then, several weeks and multiple shipping delays later, my Nanochromis Transvestis arrive in the post. I acclimate them, put them in the tank, and they swim behind the bogwood, never to be seen again.
And yeah, the waiting game has begun all over again. So many weeks have gone by that I seriously thought they might be dead. At this stage, I've literally edited half the video, and I'm not entirely confident I have any decent footage to finish it with. But I did at least see both of them hiding in the background the other day, so there is hope. I just need to be patient, I guess.
But then, 10 weeks later, they began to emerge in a more natural and relaxed way. The male has gradually coloured up from a totally washed out fish to a deep brown with the typical black bands beginning to emerge. The female is definitely more juvenile than her partner and looked quite nervous and submissive to begin with, but recently her red belly has begun to emerge and she is swimming about much more confidently. But I haven't witnessed a dominant female mating behaviour just yet, so there's an awful lot more interesting observations to be made in this tank in the future, and I'm really looking forward to watching them develop in this tank and bringing you guys along on that journey. And that's what it's all about, right? From empty tank, to research, to planning, to execution, and finally to observation. Every stage of this hobby is a journey and a continuous learning process. In my opinion, fish keeping is one of the most engaging yet mindful hobbies around. So if you haven't got a tank yet, what are you waiting for? And if you're a seasoned hobbyist in the market for a fascinating fish, I thoroughly recommend embarking on a journey with the Nanochromis Transvestis. Right, if you're here for the fish, you might want to check out the top video about my favourite epistogramma. And if you're starting out in the hobby, then you should seriously consider getting DIY CO2 for your aquarium and checking out the bottom video. That's it for now, and I'll see you soon.